So Captain Dee Wallace grew up in Port Aransas after his family arrived in 1963 at 8 years old. He worked his way up from Woody's dock boy to deckhand to licensed captain at 20 years of age. At 23, he had his 500-ton captain's license. These years put him in contact with a lot of now legendary captains. He himself was captain on one of the pioneering mothership operations, the French Look. He has judged tag and release categories for deep sea roundup for years, along with many other tournaments, and was inducted into the Port Aransas Boatman Hall of Fame in 2023. In 2024, he was awarded the Texas Saltwater Fishing Hall of Fame in Heavy Tackle Division. He is currently the tournament director at Fisherman's Wharf and has been a broker for Fox Yacht Sales for more than 20 years. So now I'll turn it over to you, Dee Wallace.
Okay, she's going to put on a salty story, and then we'll go from there.
The best kept secrets in the whole United States. The fishing we have right here in Port Aransas rivals anything I ever saw in thousands of islands. Well, I grew up here since 1963 is when we moved here permanently. You tell people you're from an island off the Texas coast and they kind of scratch their head. A friend of mine and I that really liked to fish, we would go to the dock at about 5:30 in the morning to Woody's specifically. After a couple of years of hauling stuff down the dock for tips, Woody decided to offer me a job, worked 8-hour days. And then after a couple of years of that, his deckhand didn't show up and he grabbed me to go fishing with him, and I ended up working for him for 9 years and got my captain's license and was off to the races after that. I've traveled all over the world, 30-something different countries and thousands of islands for quite a few years, built a mothership in France, and we carried a 42-foot sport fishing boat on deck. And that's the boat we did the round the world record fishing expedition. And I believe we set 11 world records. When we were doing it, it was so full rock and roll all the time, you know, we were gone. We didn't know all the things actually that we had accomplished. Did it for about 20 years and it was a great life, but after a while you want a post office box, address, telephone number. This is a fish they caught right here. I think this was maybe the first marlin ever landed in Port Aransas, or one of the first 2 or 3. And this is the mothership that I ran, the 165-footer with the 42-footer on back. I ran 2 of America's top 100 yachts and one of the world's top 100 yachts. Mega yachts. Ended up as tournament director, and this just kind of fell into this, just a natural progression from everything else I've done.
All righty. Here's one on the left for you. There's one on the right.
The Texas Legends tournament. This past year, we had 36 boats and over $800,000 in prize money that we gave out. Outstanding fishing. It's really growing fast and turning into the tournament that everybody wants to fish. And then we have other tournaments like the Deep Sea Roundup that are family-oriented, everyman tournaments. There's a lot of different tournaments. I think fishing is a great way to bring people together. Water's pretty clear. Everybody in the family can be involved, and friends, it brings friends together. There's a real wide variety of species. One boat last week caught 20 different species on one trip. We also have an outstanding flounder season that starts in the fall, and then offshore in the summer month you have all the pelagic species, what a lot of people call mahi-mahi, kingfish, jackfish, blue marlin. They're the biggest fish in the sea. Well, a lot of us here are real salty people. It's just a term being good at living a life from the sea. Oh, absolutely. I'm as salty as they get. Well, I'm Captain Dee Wallace.
All right, this is a quote that I didn't know Joseph Haywood coined it. I have no idea who he is, but a lot of days when they weren't biting, I've told people exactly it. That's why they call it fishing, not catching. All right. I kind of decided to, there's so many different ways to fish, and there have been, you know, as you can see, 30,000 BC, Neanderthals were caught fishing in the German River and got in trouble. First known mention of nets being used for fishing is 2700 BC. 3500 BC, spear, net, line, and rod appear in Egypt. I think, I'm not sure about all that. 1800s, nets became widely used for fishing because of technology and qualities of twine and, you know, things like that that they can make the nets with. I decided to concentrate on hook and line fishing because there are too many ways this could go. And hook and line fishing, I've done a lot of outlaw netting a long time ago. Don't do it anymore, but hook and line is where we decided to go. And the earliest known fishing hooks were, you know, 23,000 years old. There are histories that say that the earliest Europeans encountered the Maorians and Polynesians using hooks fabricated from snail shells. And some of those hooks, if you look at them and you think about the whorls in the top of a conch shell, you can picture where they cut that shell and fabricated that hook from. These earliest known fish hooks came from Japan, and there's also a lot of early mention of hooks in Egypt, China, just about every place that there is a long known history, you can find a history of hook and line fishing. That's a very early hook. That was the oldest one I could find with line on it. And I can't really remember how old it was. My cheat sheet may have it on here, but I don't remember. Hook and line? 9,000 years ago. So they're getting way back there. Fishing lures. This isn't an ancient fishing lure, but it's pretty old. Looks like caught a few fish too. They were used from as long as there's been fishing. Probably before, I would think maybe even before bait fishing, but who knows? You know, these things are hard to tell. But we found a lure when we were doing this research for this deal. We found a lure made out of shell from Polynesia, or a Maorian, actually, Maorian fishing lure that looked almost identical to one of the tarpon lures that's over here in the museum, made out of brass and chrome. So people have been getting after it for a long time. Go ahead. The earliest fishing reel, the Song Dynasty. This is from some old Chinese painting. And I actually found one earlier reference, but this is the first picture of one that we could locate. I found an earlier reference of, they estimated at 300 BC, that made a statement that fishing is much enhanced, or this is their translation, fishing is much enhanced with a winder. So, you know, Those Chinese are pretty tricky, man. They come up with all kinds of stuff. And you know, one of my deals is you can't tell me that when a large fish pulls on that line, you aren't smiling. I don't care who you are. If you've never fished before and you saw that one girl with her eyes this big, she'd never caught a fish before in her life, and we hooked her up on a big redfish, and I thought she was going to laugh herself overboard. Now this is a lineup of old Farley boats in Port Aransas. At some point, the sport of fishing had to begin. And, you know, it's hard to tell where it became a sport or why did it become a sport, because people started making laws or protecting some fish, or there was a really, really early, like BC in that same Chinese deal that made people feel like that one I was talking about a winder, that it might have been some sort of competition. So, you know, they weren't just sustenance fishing. They were fishing for sport and fun. But what makes it a sport? Is it, you know, competition? This is old Port Aransas tarpon picture. That's, you know, that was from the late 1800s. So I would say the sport of fishing started around 1800. There's and we didn't get it, but there's an old picture that they claim was the birth of sport fishing, when a guy in California caught a 200-pound tuna on a rod and reel, and they stated that it was a feat that had never been accomplished. But, you know, come back to Port Aransas. You know, last year we had the Florida guys. This year we got the Chinese and the California guys. You know, who knows where it started. But at a certain point, okay, sport fishing, on down to the tuna head. Okay, that's sport fishing right there. That's it in one picture. That's 200, the head, guts, and tail on that tuna weighed 220 pounds, and that was caught up in Canada on a boat I was on a few years ago. And, you know, that's when it, to me, it really becomes a sport. This was the biggest marlin ever caught. It's a black marlin, caught at Cabo Blanco, Peru. Sometime, I can't remember, sometime right around the early 1930s or maybe late 1920s. That's probably on my cheat sheet too. She fixed me up with a cheat sheet and I don't know how to use it. Largest marlin recorded. Yeah, that's good enough. Anyway, at a certain point, there was a bunch of rich people over in Florida, and they fished in the Bahamas a lot. You know, real prominent socialites. Sorry, this thing was falling down on me. A bunch of real prominent socialites, like Ernest Hemingway was one of them, that decided to start the International Game Fish Association and make a whole bunch of rules. You know, basically to handicap their friends, or, you know, to be able to compete with their friends. It was kind of more to, I think it was more to even things out for all the guys that were fishing, doing that kind of fishing, marlin fishing, stuff like that. And that was in 1932. So you could say that the sport of fishing was going strong for a lot of years, but the IGFA really stepped in and made it official and made rules that people that want to follow their rules, which sometimes I agree with and sometimes I don't, you know, they keep the records. They are the record keepers for the whole world. And believe me, the whole world does compete anywhere there's a coast. And it doesn't have to be just marlin. There's, you know, bass fishermen, and also mine saltwater fishing. There's all kinds of other sport fishing that goes on. Much more besides what I'm going to talk about tonight, just simply because I couldn't talk for 2 or 3 days about all the different kinds, and I don't really know about that many different kinds. So we're going to concentrate on what we call sport fishing boats. Not the sport of fishing, sport fishing. And to me, sport fishing is blue water fishing for the pelagic species. Wahoo is one of the biggest and fastest fish in the ocean. They think they can swim close to 60 miles an hour, and that, I say, when you hook one, you say, wahoo! They're a relative to the kingfish. They're in the mackerel family, and they're absolutely beautiful when they first come out of the water like this. Dorado are another one of the pelagic species, besides tuna and wahoo. Oh, you got it already. I'm behind. Or anyway, Dorado come out of the water, yellow and green. This is a very large specimen of a Dorado. I can tell you that. I don't know how much that weighed, but that's probably about 80 or 90 pounds. They're real thin, but mahi is what most people, they're also called dolphin fish. But I've spent so much time in Spanish or Latin countries that I call them Dorado. That's my preferred term for them. Mahi, of course, is a Hawaiian term. But they're beautiful, and they jump, and they put on a real show. Sailfish is another one of the sport fish, the pelagic species. That's a very large one, caught in Mexico. And you can see the smile on that girl's face. She was happy. I mean, there's just nothing like, and of course we release that fish. I am a very pro catch and release guy on not Dorado and Wahoo though. They're catch and eat, catch and fillet. But all the rest of them, you know, my crew down there in Mexico, I let them keep one sailfish a year each. And the guy behind the sail there, he would smoke it and pay his doctor bills with it. Because, you know, it'd keep long time smoked. So he would smoke one every year and pay his doctor bills with it. Tuna, there's all kinds of tuna. There's a world of tuna. This is a giant bluefin tuna. Of course, this is the one I like to prefer because they're the biggest ones out there. And they probably may exceed the size of blue marlin as far as the biggest fish in the world, or, you know, the biggest fish out there. They consistently catch black marlin at a really, you know, really large size, exceeding 1,000 pounds, or not consistently, but commonly. And the blue marlin, though, exceeds the largest black marlin that has ever been caught. There have been some commercial fishermen that, okay, we might have some sound on some of these. Let's try it. It's in slow motion, so the sound might not be very good on this one. But they're gonna release this fish. The guys, we always encourage the guys that caught the fish before we release it. We always encourage them to touch it. Reach out and touch it. You know, that's an 800-pound fish, easy. You know, that's hard to believe, but they're out there and people catch them. And this right here, and we'll get more into this a little later, that is a line cutting knife, because these guys, when they're leadering these fish, they wrap the line around their hands, and a wrong wrap, if you don't wrap it correctly, or you get tangled up in it, you get jerked overboard right quick. And a lot of mates carry, and I tell them they can, or if they want that. But I'd like for them to, but they don't have to. Some people think that's another thing to snag the line on and have a problem. But that's what that yellow handle is a line cutting device. This is a guy that's stretched out.
Pass it up to him, Capt.
He's stretched out on a bluefin.
Little tap
When
forward.
you stop it, back up to right first and stop it again. A little more, right there. Now, it's illegal by IGFA rules for the angler to be tied to the chair, but this is what we call a bucket. And up until a few years ago, you can see this one's freshly stitched. It was illegal for the bucket, anything the angler was touching, to be tied to the chair. But a few people got pulled overboard. Technology's getting better, and we're getting better at catching really big fish. And a few people got pulled overboard, and they changed that. So the bucket can be tied to the chair, but the angler can't. And he's stretched out. He has about 90 pounds. I was on the boat. I was there. He has about 90 pounds of drag on the reel, and that's a lot of drag, when you're fishing out here. Very many people offshore fish at all. Few people. Anyway, yeah, if you're out there fishing for kingfish or something, you might have 15 pounds of drag on the reel at the most. Anyway, I'm just going to let this play, and if I see anything else I need to comment on, I'm going to say so.
Little tap forward. Little tap forward.
You can hear the deck boss telling them what to do. They're going to tag it. That's a tag stick that guy had in his hand. I think he lost it.
Keep pulling them up, Kevin.
Little
There
tap
you go.
forward. Little baby tap.
Good job. Good job.
Little baby tap again.
They always float, so you can go back and get them. Happens a lot.
Video. Nice job, Beverly.
That guy that just walked by there with the blonde hair, he's the guy you also hear in the background telling people what to do. He's also a boat captain. He was with me on that round the world trip.
Come see it.
I've known him for years. He used to go down here and sleep on the picnic tables at Fisherman's Wharf, beg people to
300.
take him fishing when he was real young.
That's a pretty little fish, too.
Come back here, David.
Got him real good.
Yeah, come back here. Here you go. Look over here. Look over here, Kevin. Obi, get in there. Can't see you. There you go. All right.
Try to pass it up.
Now we're going to get into a little bit of marlin fishing here. I believe this is blue marlin on the wire. Looks like about a 500-600 pounder. They're going to release that one too. These guys are on a round the world fishing trip. The Bad Company crew, they're pretty much duplicating. They got mothership. They've got 3 motherships and 3 sport fishing boats scattered around the globe. And that guy with the hat on, that's James Roberts again. He flies in and goes fishing with them, and then flies out when they're done. Okay, this next video, this is in Madeira, and this is how far you're fishing from shore. And hold up. No, I'm sorry, that's not Madeira. Yes, that's Madeira. It drops off to about 1,200 feet right straight down. And you start fishing when you leave the harbor. When it jumps, you can see some little fins from remoras hanging out of its gills. They get up in their gills. and eat little particles of fish that get away when that blue marlin feeds. But that's a good one. That one's 900 pounds probably. Probably some of the biggest fish you're going to see on video anywhere, actually. Here's some more. This is the bite, okay? You see that blue marlin? Let's just back it up and start it over, or back it up and stop it somewhere. What they're doing is called bait and switch. Everybody's heard bait and switch. I just had a pharmaceutical company pull a bait and switch on me. Anyway, they put a bait out there with no hooks in it, and then when the marlin comes up and starts whacking at that lure, which is, I got some over here, then they reel it in, and it's a skill you have to develop to be able to tease one up to the boat. And they'll tease one up to the boat, and those fish keep getting madder and madder because they can't kill that fish, that bait. I mean, they get mad, and by the time they bite, they are pissed. I mean, they are mad. Anyway, but they tease them right up to the boat and then jerk that one out of the water and then drop one in the water with hooks in it. And I mean, they'll eat it right then. Anyway, go ahead and start that one over. Yeah, there you go. Okay, you can see him. It's getting closer and closer to the boat. Okay, right. Okay, they already got it. I thought that. No, that's right behind the boat. And that is a big fish. It's amazing that those fish can come out of the water that far. They hit the line and run at about 40 miles an hour. How many videos do I have left? Okay, I'm gonna stop here in a minute, and we're gonna try to do a simulation of a marlin bite. Let's go ahead and play this one, then we'll stop.
One.
Okay. There we go. That one's greyhounding away. I don't know what this guy's doing with no gloves on. He's got mucho macho as far as I'm concerned. Once again, the line cutter on the back of his pants.
Careful, Chase. You all right? Ready? Let me get my tugger down.
Is there any way? Okay. Maybe wait. Is that the end of that video? Okay. Maybe we can turn on the lights. We're going to attempt to do a marlin bite simulation. If I can get a couple of volunteers. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna volunteer Joe Ellen to come up here and be our angler. Come on, Joe. Run and hide. Yeah, she was. She might have got tired standing up. Who? Melissa? Where's Melissa? I might get you to be a marlin. I need somebody to take the bait and run. Okay, if you can set that drag, so I'm gonna have to get that bait off that other rig. Okay, that's something where they can run. Hey, we need somebody quick. Ashley.
What are you guys doing? We got a volunteer.
I need a volunteer for an angler and a volunteer for a fish. Somebody to run down this aisle. It's not going to hurt.
Next release.
We're not going to use hooks. We got a snap, all right.
Yeah, I got my cutter with me. Okay.
I'll be the fish. Big catch.
This isn't, this is a light tackle chair. And to me, this is really light tackle. Okay, if you'll stand here for just a minute. And I'm going to be the outrigger. You know, you see all these great big old things sticking off all these sport fishing boats. The ones in the middle are antennas for all kinds of stuff. And the ones on the outside are outriggers. And when you get out there to the fishing grounds, you fold those outriggers out. And you'll see it on one of these videos here in a minute. Anyway, and then on these outriggers, there's a clip. And you set it at different settings according to what size bait you got, so it won't pull it out. And then you, just take a strain on the bait. Okay, so this would be up in the rigger, what they say, up in the rigger. Huh? It don't matter, I don't think. You're not going to get the sense of the sound of the drag with this guy as you would with a blue marlin going 40 miles an hour. But you'll get it as good as we can get on dry land. How's that? I'll just hold both of them. Maybe hit me in the face, maybe not. Go ahead. Okay, just as soon as you feel like it, you can just turn around, put that over your shoulder, and take off running. Okay, that's the bite. Okay, that's when he's going to get hooked right there. When that slack comes out of that line, there you go. That's how we do it. And then this guy, take a little strain on it. You might jump around and do what a tail walk back there. Yeah, pump and grind. That's why, take a little strain on it, let him get you a little line, then take a little out. Okay, come up on the drag. Put some stress on him. No, right here. You had it right. Okay, we just broke IGFA rules. He touched the reel. That one, if that's a world record, it's poo-poo. Okay, just keep pumping and winding on it until you get him in. All right? Yeah. Whoops, you freewheeled it, you lost him.
That's a major boat rule. Never just drag
Right? Yeah. Stick around with us for about an hour or
Yeah, jump into the boat and wreak havoc. And that happens too, and people get hurt. Are you pulling up that Stuart getting pulled overboard? I don't have mine hooked up to it. Anyway, once the wire man gets the wire, if you're going to kill that fish, when it gets close enough, you throw the steel at it. You hit it with this gaff hook, get it hopefully in the shoulder, and it then may release from the handle. And then that's tied off usually to the base of the fighting chair. Some fish you might get 2 or 3 in it, and they can rip one of those out. They can rip a couple of them out. I've seen one rip 3 out.
Just the bait for the marlin to eat.
This one was event after man.
Okay, we may be able, I found it late, but Okay, we can put this away, but we're going to keep the lights on for a minute. Thank you very much. That's. Wait a minute. Keep the lights on a minute. I got some more. Are we going to show Stuart?
I didn't turn off the lights, but I can show it.
All right, you got Stuart?
Just the bait for the marlin.
Okay, this is what happens when things don't go right. This is Stuart Campbell. That's back in Madeira. Against all odds, he survived. And that guy, Stuart Campbell, he's passed away. He's gone to the big rip in the sky. Rip tide. That's when two tides come together. You know, fish are very, very temperature sensitive. But you can see what happens maybe. The slack line from the wireman gets tangled up on one of his rod guides, and he was trying to untangle it, and he didn't get it, and that fish took off and took him with him. Anyway, he was an extremely experienced fisherman. Probably one of the best in the world. In my opinion, he was the best angler in the world. Okay. Anyway, we can stop that and you can get ready with the other, but I need some more light. I'm going to show a couple more things here. Very famous lure maker in Hawaii named Joe Yee. This is one of my favorite keepsakes, favorite things I own. Okay, this is a 1,000-pound blue marlin bill. That's what they're whacking at that bait with, and they get back on the back of the boat. Sometimes they'll start whacking at everybody in the back of the boat, and I really believe that they are trying to hurt you. Okay, this is another teaser. This is called a squid dredge. And we call them dredges because they drag them up from the bottom. But it simulates a school of fish, and we've only been using these for about 20 years, and they are very effective at attracting fish. And when I fish, if possible, I use all natural baits. We rig up baits and have this many natural baits. This dredge, when it's all rigged up with natural baits, probably costs $400, $500. And they're only good for a day or two, and that's if you take real good care of them and fish don't come in and eat them up, and they do. You know, you tow them just right past the farthest the captain can see from the fly bridge, or just barely see it, and fish will come up and eat those baits off there, and you never even see them. All right, let me see what else we got here we can show you. Huh? About how many? This is only my second public speaking tour, so excuse me if I'm not quite proper. Anyway, I'm going to show you a couple more videos. Okay, you see this? You can see the outriggers laid out. And what I do is I try and get my baits back there. There will be bubble trails from the engines of the boat and the hull. And you usually have two, probably at least, baits off of each rigger. And you try to, I try to get my baits out of the bubbles, because I've watched fish get lost in the bubbles, you know, lose whatever they're chasing in the bubbles. So that's what I do with the outriggers. Okay, go ahead and let her rip on. What are we on? 27? I'm on the wrong page. Story of my life. Okay, 27. Okay, another one for bad company to cut loose. That guy with that straw hat on is James. He's the guy that was in that round the world trip with me. And all these guys are world-class fishermen. When we have sound, you won't hear a bunch of yelling. I mean, it's a well-oiled machine. But they fly him in where different places, and then he's the deck boss. Okay, they just released that one. He will wire. He can run the boat. Whatever he does, it costs $600 a day, whether he's the bartender, the boat washer, the captain, or the mate. And he makes a living doing it. I did that quite a bit until a couple of years ago, and birthdays got the best of me. Anyway, the Bad Company. Actually, the guy's name that owns the Bad Company is, it's not coming to me now. But he probably owns the mortgage on your house. He's got fabulous yachts, 3 of them. He had 4 of them, but he's got 3 of them that's all they do is they go from place to place, let him fish. All right, let her rip, Miss Jensen. Okay, this is taken from another boat, obviously, but you can see the lure flopping around out there. And sound? Okay, one of these there's sound, and you can hear, the captain is jockeying the boat to try and keep the blue marlin behind the boat, but the blue marlin, sometimes has different ideas. But different captains have different ways of fighting the fish. I attack the fish. I don't let the fish attack me, and I stay as close to that fish as I can. A lot of captains like to let that fish get way out there and flop around and drag the line around and wear himself out. I don't believe in that. That's more time for the hook to work loose, more time for a wahoo or something to bite the swivel. It's just too much time for things to go wrong. And those things have 1,000 yards of line on them. That can be a lot of line out there. Even 500 yards is a lot of line. Is that the last one? Okay, well, I guess I'm there. I guess we'll get some lights and see if anybody wants to look at anything again, or let's go back to a tuna or something. A tuna head.
Give me an idea, how long does it take to pull in 1,000-pound marlin?
Well, it can be from about 45 minutes to never. One of the reasons I theorized when we were over there in Madeira, we set several world records over there, and wherever we anchored the mothership, I always scuba dived down to check to see how well the anchor was hung, because the way the wind goes is it goes over all those steep mountains and then comes back in blowing towards the land. So if my anchor pulled, I was up on the land. And about 50 foot down, usually I was anchored in about 90 to 95 foot of water, but only a couple hundred yards off of the coast. That's how steep it goes down. So there's not much time to get the engines cranked and crew up and everything else if something starts to go wrong. Anyway, but what I noticed there was a very extreme thermocline, which is a temperature change. And I was saying earlier, you catch fish on riptides where 2 currents are going together. It can be a different color waters. But one thing that's always the same is the temperature will be a different on one side of the rip than the other. So fish hit that thermocline, they're sensitive. They don't want to go past it. It can be on both sides. There'll be fish on both sides, or different fish on both sides, or no fish on one side. Usually the fish are on the warmer side. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. And I have a theory about that. A lot of those fish, well, really all of them, I think, except one that we caught there in Madeira, over 1,000 pounds, they were dead within 40 minutes. And usually they went down, and I think they hit that thermocline, in the fight. They dive and hit that thermocline, it kills them. But most of those fish were about 45 minutes, and you know, they are the oldest of their species. So, you know, some people say, well, it's like fighting a 70-year-old woman. Well, it's 1,000-pound 70-year-old woman. You know, you can, there's a lot of different ways you can look at it, I guess. Any more questions? I got some more things I could even talk about on that subject. Uh-huh. You want to tell them about tags? Here.
Miss Jensen will tell you about it because that's part of her business.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
So with their tagging that they're doing, it's in part with the Hart Research Institute Center for Sportfish Science and Conservation at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi. So we have a tagging program where we ask recreational anglers that are going offshore for these sport fish, so tuna and all of these billfish, and we ask them to take these tags, whether they be, small little, we have anywhere between small little dart tags that we tag sharks with as well. So if somebody catches them, they can call us and report that tag number, and we can kind of get a understanding of how large it's grown since the first time it was tagged. Then we have satellite tags that we use, and we have two different versions of satellite tags. One of our satellite tags goes into sharks and their dorsal fin, so we can track where they're headed, and it pings for us. And then we have another tag that is used and at a certain point in time that we set for it. So it could be 90 days, it could be 180 days. And at that point, the tag will pop off and it'll send us a GPS location of where it's at so we can go collect it. And once we collect it, we're able to collect more data on where that fish went, how fast it went, the depth, things like that. So it's helping us create a database on where these fish are traveling so we have a better understanding of them.
Okay. We, a combination. We use what's called braided line backing, and what I use. Some people use 100% monofilament. If you fish a lot and fish tournaments, you know, I still would if I just quit fishing 2-3 years ago, but I'd change the line sometimes every day. If I catch a fish on a line, I don't use that line anymore. With monofilament. Now the backing, we use Dacron backing of the same breaking strength, and for IGFA records, you have to send in a sample of your line and the hook or lure or whatever it was caught on, and they test it, the leader, hook, and a line sample, and they test it for that breaking strength. Dacron, I use a backing of Dacron with about 150 yards of mono on top. For a top, we call it top shot. And that way, you don't change the Dacron, you just change the 150 yards or so of monofilament that's right, you know, closest to the fish. And hopefully you're not more than 150, 200 yards away from that fish anyway, if things go right. But when you got a lot of line out, there's so many things that go bad. I know I've had fish cut off by wahoo because they hit a silver snap swivel, and I've got a couple of those. We use when we're fishing heavy tackle. I don't know, y'all can hand this around or whatever, but this is the size snap swivels we use. I know whatever y'all use for crappie, but y'all just pass it all through the crowd. Well, this is 300 for leader. That's just kind of average, not really. That's what I would use for everyday fishing. If I was fishing over in Madeira, I might go up to 400. You know, or tuna fishing. Tuna are real shy or what we call leader shy, and sometimes don't use any leader at all, just a hook on that 130 hook right on the end of the line. We used to do something we called a mouse trap, where we had a piece of plastic tubing and we'd put it up the line 10 or 15 feet, piece of plastic tubing this big, and then put some barrel weights on top of it, and then rubber band it all so it'd stay in one place. And then when the fish would take the bait, it would break that rubber band and that piece of tubing would go down and stay in the corner of their mouth so their mouth couldn't abrade the mono into. Worked. Yes, sir.
When you were a younger man, did you ever fish for tarpon?
Yeah, but not here. They were pretty much gone. I just caught the tail end of the glory of tarpon here. There were still a lot of people fishing for them when I was a kid, but not many catching them. I have fished for them over in Boca Grande, and getting back to that conservation deal, I've caught quite a few tarpon all over the world, really, but I fished for them in Boca Grande, which is probably the best place in the United States. And a lot of our original fishermen came from that area because there were more tarpon here than there were there. But on one trip, I just kind of kept some records, and I don't remember them exactly, but 40% of the fish we hooked solid, got ate by tarpon. Got ate by sharks before they got to the boat. And that's like the epicenter for tarpon conservation right there. So the way I figured it, there was 100 boats fishing out there, skiffs just lined up all in a row. So if all of them lost 4 fish a day, 400 tarpon a day were been eaten by the sharks. So our conservation efforts, we can't keep them here, or we can't bring one in to take pictures of it even. It'd be dead if you brought it in. But if they really wanted to, how many days that days is that, that season is 60 days. So think about that, 400 tarpon a day for 60 days. That's a lot of dead tarpon. People could kill tarpon, for trophies all over everywhere. Here we could do it here. Have a tarpon trophy tag or something. So you could kill one a year if they just stopped tarpon fishing in Boca Grande. Conservation works funny ways sometimes. Let's go. Come on, somebody think of something else. I got one back there. Actually, a long time ago, it was worse. Now, we do a lot of live baiting around the rigs with big tuna. We'll catch a live tuna about this big and rig it up and put it back down. And just in the past few years, the small sharks have gotten really bad. Sometimes they'll just run you off the rig. You just can't fish there because they're so bad. But in other places in the world, like Australia, Australian sharks have learned to follow the sportfish boats. And when they hear those engines revving in that sportfish boat, let me back up to Boca Grande. The tarpon there are smart, and they will follow you around and wait for that fish to start getting tired before they kill it, so they won't have to work too hard, right before you're about to boat it. Now, those sharks over in Australia have gotten so smart that when they hear those engines revving, they will come and follow that boat and do the same thing to blue and black marlin. When they get close to the boat, they'll kill them. Now, somebody asked me about, did I catch any tarpon? We used to have, I was right at the end of that. I was about 17 years old. Over in Bimini and Capt, Bahamas, there's about a half mile of gradually white sand, beautiful. White sand before it drops off to, 800, 1,200 feet, whatever, it doesn't matter. After that, it's just deep. Anyway, what they would do is they would, when they hooked a tuna, the captain, they would just try and keep a strong line on it. They're always fishing right along the edge of that drop. And the captain would try and keep a good pull on it, and he'd round up and try and chase that tuna up on the flat. Because if they didn't get it up on the flat, that tuna was going to dive down to about 200-300 foot of water, and then they'd be in for a couple-hour fight, and the sharks would eat it. Let's go. Somebody's got to have something wondering about. I don't know if I can think of anything else, but I'd love to tell you. Here you go.
So you quit fishing 4 years ago or so?
Yeah.
How bad is it missing?
Yeah. It's bad. I've done my share. I've caught my share. I've been everywhere. I mean, I brought, actually, I just brought these to show her, but I've got, my passports don't have another place to put a stamp, and this isn't even my one for the last 10 years. There's nowhere to put a stamp in any of those passports. I mean, there isn't many places I hadn't fished. Yes, sir.
When's the last time you were fishing?
When they made that Salty Story video. And this is funny. Those people had been here. They made it about all over town, really, but I was their person they targeted that year. I'd never heard of it before. Anyway, they had 9 people and, a film crew, and they're very professional. And they wanted to go fishing on Thursday, and they got here on Sunday. And all week long they'd been here, and fishing was so terrible. I mean, so horrible. And Alex Porter, that other guy, that captain, I kind of raised him too. Anyway, they were going fishing with him and another guy that happened to get killed in a boat collision, so they were a boat short. Anyway, they have a camera boat. I mean, it's on. They got drones. They've got everything. And they had been hearing about how terrible fishing was. And I said, I kept saying, we'll find you something to reel on. We'll find something, there's got to be something out there. I said, well, and they were like, well, what are we going to do if we don't catch any fish? I said, man, I'll tie a bucket on a rod, and we've done that to trick people plenty of times. I'll tie a bucket on a rod, and we'll throw it out there, and you can reel it in, fight it. Anyway, come time to go, and, fishing was so bad, they said, well, do you mind if we just leave at about 9 or 10? I said, no, I don't mind. Come on, that's good. Anyway, they got there, and we were headed up towards Mud Island, which is up to the north past Lydia Ann Channel, just a little bit away. And we were running down Lighthouse Shoreline, and Alex and I both at the same time saw this reddish hue over along the shoreline there, and he cut the engine, and we pulled up there, and there was a school of redfish up there that was just unbelievable. And every time a bait, I would cast a line, and it got to the point where I was just taking them off, and Alex was casting. You just cast the line, take 2 cranks on it, and hand it to somebody, and say, here you go. Anyway, those people were just blown. Can you pull that one up, that Salty Story deal? Yeah, turn the noise off on it. Anyway, get to where that girl's got her eyes bugging out. Anyway, when I was trying to get, we only had one dip net, and we were catching them so fast. Alex had a dip net, and we were back at the dock at 45 minutes with, I think, 18 fish, all perfect. If you get that Salty Story on a laptop or something, look at it real close. On one of those overhead pictures, you can see that school of redfish. It's a little bit different color than everything around it. There's a couple of dark spots there that are bottom grass. Anyway, anyway, they were just totally blown away, as they should have been. We just really lucked out. I don't know why or how. The fishing God smiled upon us that day. But that none of them, I mean, one of them was from Arizona, a couple of them were from New York, New Jersey. None of them had ever caught a fish bigger than that, you know, that big. A couple of them had never even been fishing before. Anyway, just show it again. There she is. Anyway, oh no, that's on the Scat Cat. There's a picture of her in there somewhere. Anyway, when we didn't have a dip net, and I just, you know, I know there's a spot where you can grab a redfish where they go limp. And I grabbed that redfish, and one of those camera guys said, "Wow, did you see that? He went full Rambo on that fish." He had an underwater camera, and they promised me copies of that video, and I never got it again. But he had an underwater camera, and he was the school of fish was swimming towards him, and he was holding that underwater camera in front of him, and they were just parting in front of him, and he said, "Will they bite me?" I said, "Oh, only on your pee-pee." He didn't stay in the water long. Yeah, they promised me a copy of that video, and I never saw it. I'm sure they're going to make some money off that, because I doubt if anybody has ever got video of a school of redfish like that. I just don't think it's possible. They followed me around for 3 days for 5 minutes worth of video. They did a real good job. They edited some of the things. I don't have a real high liking for, so many people in the media have misrepresented things I've said, and I really don't have a high liking for them. And those guys edited some of the things I said to make it sound like exactly what I said, but they did such a good job of it that I'm going to let it go. Well, wait a minute. I got more questions here. I got a couple more now. This guy here first. Yes, sir. Both. The hooks we use are what they call cadmium or cadmium or something hooks. They deteriorate very rapidly. You know, people have caught fish that have been released just a couple weeks before. But, you know, they got a much higher chance of, surviving in the water than they do in the back of that boat. Yeah, sometimes we get the hooks out if we can, but you know, if it looks like somebody might get hurt, just cut the line. The Texas Legends Tournament is a tournament that I put on, and we promote catch and release, but up to 600 pounds. So another thing that a lot of people don't know is marlin change sex. They're all male up until about 250 pounds, and then they change into females. Transsexual movement's been going on for a long time, apparently. Anyway, we figure we give a bonus because of the difficulty. Y'all can look up the Texas Legends Fishing Tournament too. We give a bonus for up to 600 pounds. It is in your favor to turn it loose because of the point system we use. And the way we score fish is not by size, but by species. So somebody can catch, several small blue marlin and score a bunch of points. But if you catch one 600 pounder, and get it in the boat and bring it in, then you get a 1,000-point bonus. There has to be, guys fishing for these little fish and guys fishing for the really big fish. There has to be a delineation. And the Legends tournament has always been a big fish tournament. But we're trying to be conservative as much as is reasonable. But there's guys that want to bet a lot of money. We had 38 boats this past year and had $800,000 in prize money. I mean, there's one fish, it wasn't in there, but there was one fish, remember the video I sent you, the one flopping in the cockpit? Poco Bueno. In 2015, I won Poco Bueno, won $330,000, with a 575-pound fish. So, there's a lot of incentive in these guys that got big bucks. And Texas oil men have been in the forefront of sport fishing boat size and design. And a lot of it is they're just so competitive with their the guys that own the different companies. They all fish against each other. And they all want to beat each other as bad in that fishing tournament as they do in business. I mean, it gets vicious. Somebody comes up with something I haven't seen. Okay, I had a guy over here. Did I get you?
Yeah, my question, and you answered part of it, is, you have people who really push the limits.
Oh, yeah.
You got the rules there.
Oh, yeah. There's some guys that think if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying hard enough. We've had, I know of guys that have, or we've caught them sticking water hoses up in them and filling them full of water. Those fish don't drink water, and you hang one up and 15 gallons of water falls out of it. It's like, come on, guys, we've seen this before. Actually, okay, here's a lights, please. Yeah, you might hear some colorful language in here. This is that fish I was telling you about that won $300,000 in Poco. And I've seen fish like this jump out of the boat. And you'll hear me yelling, close the door.
Take it around the trunk, go around the corner, go around the corner.
I was telling them, take it around the corner, take it around the fight
Take
chair.
it towards you, Jack.
You can see my squid dredge, my pink squid dredge in the background.
Take it out, help. Not yet.
There's a bit of adrenaline pumping right there.
Put the string on it real quick. I want to just take a look.
We got a tape to see how long to measure them in the water, so if it's borderline, we don't bring it in the boat. Okay, that's the string. We've got one little lure on there for minimum size.
No, the point of the jaw, put it on the point of the lip. Fucking point of the lip. Yeah, Dee. Yeah. Okay, let's put a measuring tape on it. Get it on in here.
They had it hooked around the dorsal fin, and I could see that. But I didn't want to try and tell them. I just wanted them to get it in the boat. Close the door.
And get it iced down.
Shark come up there and take a bite of it. It's disqualified as a mutilated fish. They're going to see how big it really is now. I could tell from up on the bridge.
113 and a half.
113 inches. What's that, 12 feet, 10 inches?
Yeah! Great job, guys.
I don't know. Where can we go from here?
How do you handle seasickness?
I've never seen sickness. You just gotta, guys that get seasick just have to get over it. I've never been seasick in my life. I don't know. It's just some people do, some people don't. You know, it's some people can grow out of it. You know, I've heard of people using the seasick patches that you put behind your ear and then just cut them in half. That's what I did with my little brother. Cut them in half and cut them in quarters until they don't get sick anymore.
Going back to the tagging of the fish.
Yes, sir.
What kind of distance have you seen them travel with the GPS tracking?
So we actually, if you go onto the Sportfishing,
Long way.
so if you go onto our Instagram, I believe we just released our first satellite images and our trail of our first billfish that we tracked. I believe it's a swordfish. I believe. I can't remember exactly. But we just got that one back, and I haven't gone to take a look at it yet because I also don't have social media, so that's 100% my bad. But our shark tagging is pretty cool. We see those guys go everywhere. We actually have some short fin makos that we have tagged that some go all the way down south, like towards Cuba, and then some decide to travel all the way to the East Coast and up the East Coast. So our tracking is really interesting. If you go to OSearch, you can see where our sharks have traveled. You can also go to our Sportfish Center website and track our sharks. And you should be able to see exactly how far, because I don't want to give the incorrect information, but you can go online.
Back to, I got involved with some satellite tagging on those giant bluefin tuna up in Nova Scotia. And the two main breeding grounds are the Gulf of Mexico, or the two known breeding grounds are the Gulf of Mexico and the Mediterranean Sea. And and they're out here right now. You know, that was in October, late October, early November, probably late October, that video, most of that video you saw. I've gotten to where I just go either the last 2 weeks of October and the first 2 weeks of November. I haven't been in about 3 or 4 years either. Canada got so weird on COVID vaccines and being able to come in the country that I just said no. But the giant bluefin, the satellite tags show that some of them from there, they're up there gorging on herring before they migrate to either the Mediterranean Sea or the Gulf of Mexico to spawn. And they don't go to the same place every year, and sometimes they go on walkabout, like make a loop around the whole Atlantic Ocean. And ICAT, International Committee for Conservation of Atlantic Tuna, I believe that's what the real words for it are, ICAT. The way we found that place up in Canada with all those giant tuna was we used to, my buddy James, the guy that I told you, has been fishing with me everywhere, we were trying to figure out, right when computers came out, or home computers became a thing in the early 90s, I believe, or mid-90s. We were trying to figure out this tuna deal, and ICAT monitors all the catches of tuna. Every fish house that handles giant bluefin tuna has to report their landings every day at midnight. And they're cut fish, heads and tail are gone. That's the reason we had that head, because they give you the head, guts, and tail. So when that tricky little Oriental guy that buys it, they're off the dock, and they say it weighs this much, then you have the head, guts, and tail to prove how much it weighed when you caught it. That was 1,100. The Japanese guy or Oriental guy bought 900. Where'd the other 200 pounds go? So they give you that to prove, and then you got to do something with it, of course. But got off track there. I do that a lot. Where were we?
Your computer.
Oh, we got on the computer. Anyway, the reportings for all these fish houses, every fish house in North America is on that ICAT site, and how much they processed every year. And we found this little bitty place called Valentine Cove in Nova Scotia. All, being a socialist country as it is, all of the fish houses in Canada are government owned. And, it's a franchise and people lease it or buy the franchise or whatever, but they still have to report it all. Anyway, this little bitty place, and I have some photos of that I wish I would have put up, but I didn't. Valentine's Cove had the largest dressed weight tuna, which was like 720 pounds, which makes them 20% head and tail, like average weight of 840 pounds. So we started going fishing up there, and sure enough, they were there. We made an industry there that didn't exist before. In September, those lobster boat guys would pull their boat out of the water and pour rock salt in the bilges and lay it up till the next year, and we created an industry there. We took fighting chairs up there and, took the tackle. We leave the tackle up there. Our giant bluefin tackle is up there still. Leave it up there every year. We got, 430-pound rigs, kind of like this one laying on the floor here, that are all rigged up for giant bluefin tuna. And we, take all the terminal tackle, all the hooks and leaders and stuff. This is not quite a 130, but it's awful close to it. Oh no, this is an 80. This is an 80-pound rig. A 130 is about half again as big as that one. They're just like a fine watch. Now, that's a couple $1,000 there, about maybe $2,500. Anyway, we did everything. We go up there with single screw lobster boats and bolt a fighting chair on the back of it. And usually most of those guys have one rod holder because they get one tuna permit per year. And they just go out there and catch their one tuna and put the boat up. But they found out they can buy permits, unused permits from Mexico. When they migrate down here, they're a much poorer quality of tuna because they burn off all that fat from when they're gorging it on up there. So the Japanese don't want that. That don't help their sex life as much as one that's got a bunch of fat on it. Anyway, for a long time they thought the ones here were a different species because they were so skinny, but they've just swam 2,500 miles. Imagine, and they do it in a pretty short time, like 2-3 months, and they're feeding some on the way, but still not like that. Those big, huge, dense schools of menhaden. And I've had people ask me, why don't you take a sport fishing boat up there and do it? Well, we chum for them is what we do. And, we'll start out a 3-day fishing trip or 3 fishing days with 1,000 pounds of herring with no ice on it on the deck. And I'm saying, well, we take a sport fish boat up there, but where are you going to put that 1,000 pounds of rotten herring? I mean, it gets pretty rough. That was a sailfish that. Oh, when she was talking about tagging, that was a sailfish that swam. So these fish cover a lot of area. Blue marlin as well. They'll tag one in the Bahamas. They'll be caught in the Mediterranean. These fish do so much stuff. That's why they're called highly migratory species. And that's the pelagics, the ones that I've told you about, all the pelagics as far as I know. The blue marlin, white marlins, well, we didn't hit white marlin, sailfish, wahoo, dorado, tuna are all considered highly migratory species.
Y'all are welcome also, after we're done, to come up and look at this stuff. Just watch out, because we got a lot of things with hooks in them. But you're welcome to come up and look. Any last questions?
Thank you, y'all. I'll